Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to call.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning. And would like to welcome everyone to this first virtual meeting of zoning appeals. To start the meeting, I'm going to read the preamble that lays out the responsibility that we have during this time and what the overall rules for the meeting are. And then I'm going to be turning it over to our acting chair, Mr. Tim Donovan. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstention due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx stream.
Hello?
All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. At this time, we would like to take 60 seconds to acknowledge the events that are going on in our nation and acknowledge the fact that we as a community take Black lives seriously, and we want to ensure that we acknowledge the challenges that we face and reflect on our responsibilities during this time. So we're going to take 60 seconds and think about what's going on in our nation.
Hello?
Mr. Chairman, the meeting is yours.
Hello?
Mr. Chairman, the meeting is yours.
Mr. Donovan?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you and welcome everyone to the first day of the rest of our lives. And we're going to be all participating in an experiment here today. And the one thing I would suggest to start off, if you have anything that's called a patient pill, take it now. Knowing my personal record with technology, we're in for a hell of a ride. Don't let that frustrate you. And the idea here is that we will try to work our way around it, through it, etc., and have this meeting be as meaningful as any other of our BOZA meetings. It's mentioned that I'm standing in as the acting chairperson. That is because Carol Johnson lost her husband to cancer this past Saturday. In keeping with the idea of shaving out a little bit of time just to recognize that, why don't we take 10 seconds of silence and then we'll proceed with the meeting starting now. Okay, folks, thank you very much. Liz, let's start the meeting. Do the roll call of the board members of the Zoning Appeals Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bates?
Here.
Ms. Britt?
Here.
Ms. Barnes? Ms. Barnes?
Ms. Barnes.
Maybe.
Hello, I'm here.
Maybe.
Okay, that's what we need to hear.
Thank you. And Mr. Donovan?
I'm here. So
As stated, Carol is out.
As indicated, we have 4 of the 5 board members, so we have ample quorum today. We have no postponements or withdrawals to report. So let us begin our hearing with the first case. Alana, if you'll read that into the record, please.
Yes. Calendar number 20-041 at 18609 Rockland Avenue. Riyadh A. Salah, owner, proposes to erect a 9-foot by 25-foot rear second floor addition attached to existing single-family residence in an A1 one-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Okay, somebody, this is going to be one of those patient things. We ask that you keep your phone on mute unless you are actually speaking to the issue, because otherwise we're going to get a lot of cross-channel talk here. Before we continue, is the appellant here, is ready to basically present his case?
Yes, I'm ready, sir.
Okay, good. Hold on. You and anyone else for this case, we're going to ask you to be sworn in now by Ms. Barnes. So everyone who wants to give testimony, now is the time to plug in and follow her direction.
We would ask that you use the raise hand feature to let us know that you want to make a comment so that we know that you're making a comment and that you would be sworn in.
We have no ability to do a raised hand. We're strictly on the phone.
Okay, thank you. Are you here for this case?
Yes, we are. This is Murray Evans and Margaret LaRosa.
Okay. Well, just
Okay.
Wait a minute. What case are you talking about? We're here for the West Park Animal Hospital at 9:30.
no.
No, that's not this case.
Try to pay attention. Give the address again.
The address is 18609 Rockland Avenue. Case number 20-41.
If you're here for this case and you want to give testimony, we need to swear you in right now. So anyone for this case wants to give testimony, follow Ms. Barnes' direction. Ms. Barnes?
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Please give us your name. Give us your name, and I do.
Riyadh Salih.
Go ahead.
I do. And I do.
Anyone else?
You could share for me.
Okay. Liz, can we have the history of the project, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In the records room, I found a permit was issued in 1952 to erect a one-family dwelling. And in July of 1952, a permit was issued to erect a private garage. There are no variances on file for this address. And in the more recent history, we see in 2000, a permit was issued for interior, exterior alterations to sound insulate the property. And I believe that is all that I have. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Laura, can we have from the law department the standard by which we'll be judging the case?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, appellant is requesting an area variance from the side yard requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Raid.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you'd like to do and tell us how you want to address the variance you're requesting.
Yes, sir. Actually, I just want to raise the walls and the ceiling upstairs and build rooms over there and a bathroom. And I need to add on the yard a dining room or a living room in the backyard. That's everything. Because I bought the house from the auction and I did not saw it till they gave me the permission to go inside. I found it small for us. We are 7 people.
All right. Is there any questions from the board?
No.
No, okay. Board members, do you have any questions?
Alana, Faith, is
Maurice?
a hand raised?
Alana?
Maurice, could I see the plan view again, please?
This is the site, you mean the site plan or the
Not
elevations?
the site plan, the elevation, please.
There you go.
So the plan is to raise it to a two-story structure all the way around. To the appellant, sir, your plan is to raise the structure to 2-story
Yes.
for the entire building,
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So follow up.
Excuse me, ma'am. Just the attic and the living room. That's all. The living room from the yard all the way up to the attic, and they're gonna be together. And I want to raise up the walls and the ceiling on the attic because it's too short, around like 5 foot. I want to raise it up to 7 or 8.
On the attic, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions from the board? Okay, city planning.
Yes.
You're not
Yes,
from
sir,
the board, sir.
And probably I just moved the garage a little bit closer to the house. Probably, not for sure.
There's going to be a change in your plan, is that what you're saying?
And the garage, probably I just move it a little bit to the house.
Do you move it away from the neighbor's yard in that move or not?
You know what? Just everything what I told you, nothing else. Just the living room and the dressing
Right.
rooms and the ceiling.
Okay. City planning.
Mr. Chairman, we have Liz Kukla with her hand raised. Ms. Kukla, did you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, any changes that will take place or that are proposed to take place to the garage would be under a separate permit. It's not under this permit today. It's not under our purview.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, we have Adam Davenport, the staff planner for this area. Did you want to give the staff recommendation, Mr. Davenport?
Thanks, Maurice. Yeah, this is Adam Davenport, city planning.
Were you sworn in?
For the case,
Yeah.
I was not. No, that's a good point.
Mayor, Ms. Barnes, could you swear him in?
Yes. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Proceed, Mr. Davenport.
Thank you. So this is a pretty simple extension of the house itself. I was going to say before Ms. Kukla said that the garage will need to be a separate permit, but the house extension is something that we would typically grant in other areas of the city as well. I know this is typically not seen in the West Park area. We don't get too many permit requests down in this area, but city planning is okay with this proposal. Thank you.
Mr. Davenport, would you know by any chance whether or not the council representative had seen this plan at all?
I don't know if he's seen the proposal, but I think he may be on the call actually too.
Okay.
Mr. Slife is on this call.
Okay, good. Anyone else before I call upon the councilman? Okay, Councilman, were you sworn in?
I was not.
Okay, Ms. Barnes, could you swear the councilman in, please?
Yes. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that what you're about to say is true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please proceed.
Mr. Chair, I'm supportive of the granting of this variance.
Okay, short and sweet, we love it. Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from the board or otherwise? If not, I'll welcome a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Go ahead.
I would motion that upon review of plans and with the testimony from the city planning and Councilman Slife in their agreement to this project, that we motion to approve the variance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Liz, could you call the roll for?
Yes. Ms. Barnes?
Ms. Barnes, yes.
Ms. Britt?
Kelly?
Might be muted.
To the next one, we'll come back to her.
Ms. Fink?
Yes.
Ms. Britt? Mr. Donovan?
Yes. We'll add Kelly.
Calendar
We'll add Kelly.
20-41 is granted.
Okay, we'll collect her vote when she returns. Thank you all. This case is will be ratified next week. We'll send you out a letter. Thank you for your cooperation, and onward we go to the case number 2. Alana, could you read case number 2?
Yes, calendar number 20-063 at 7911 Carnegie Avenue. Property Acquisition LLC, prospective purchaser, Naomi Colson Joe Z LLC, and the City of Cleveland owners propose to consolidate 4 parcels and establish use as a bank with a drive-through in a E3 multifamily residential district and a E3 local retail business overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
All right. Everyone who is here for this case and wishes to testify, add testimony, will you please at this time raise your right hand, repeat after Ms. Barnes. At the end, we ask that if you're going to affirm this, you do so by saying, I do, and giving us your name. Ms. Barnes.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Please state your name when you do that.
Robert Abramovich.
Anthony Whitfield.
Okay.
Shauna Jones.
Thank you.
All right. Can I have the history of the property, Liz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project area was originally zoned general retail and multifamily. In 1984, it was changed to local retail. Just the general retail part was changed to local retail, so it remains in the split zoning of local retail and multifamily. In the records room, I found that in July of 1969, a permit was issued to erect a gasoline service station and hard surface parking lot. And in 1971, a permit was issued to erect an identification sign. There are no variances for this address, and in the more recent history, I only found that in 1990, there were electrical violations that were issued for the property and corrections were made. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Going to the law department, can we please get the standard by which we'll be judging the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting a use variance and an area variance in the off-street parking regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. All right, who will be the spokesperson for the project to begin with?
Well, Robert Abramovich.
Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Good morning, Mr. Donovan and members of the Board of Zoning Appeals in the City of Cleveland. Thank you for having us. I'm Robert Abramovich with Property Acquisitions. We are the prospective purchaser and developer of the property in question. On the first slide, just an overview of the location at the district level, highlighted in red. You will see the 4 parcels that we are discussing, which are at the corner of northeast corner of Carnegie and East 79th Street. If we can go to the next slide. So the location, again, northeast corner of 79th and Carnegie, the redevelopment of these parcels in the Fairfax neighborhood of Cleveland. I'm going to start from the southernmost property, which is shown on the map at 7911 Carnegie, and kind of give you a quick overview of each of the properties. So 7911 Carnegie is a former auto service center that was previously mentioned, a gas station with historical underground storage tanks, which reduces the potential for development of this property in the future. The seller has owned the property since 2015 and considered several different scenarios until deciding to market the property for sale in late 2018. According to the listing broker from Hoff and Lay, there were no serious offers or interest until we engaged on the property in late 2019. While the property is 4/10 of an acre, the unusual size caused it to function somewhat smaller, closer to 3/10 of an acre. So you can see the property, while it fronts Carnegie at approximately 165 feet, there's a notch in the back that is somewhat unusable as the property sits as a standalone by itself today. The next property to the north, 2065 East 79th Street. It is a property that is owned by the, there you go, City of Cleveland Land Bank. And in, let's see, 2013, that home was demolished and is been owned by the land bank since then. The next property to the north, 2061 East 79th, is owned by Ms. Colston. We have a contract to purchase Ms. Colston's property. She had received interest to sell her property in recent years. However, the offers were not significant enough, nor did they make economic sense for her to sell and relocate. And truthfully, for this home and a lot of these homes in this area, there's a lack of marketability for a single family homes in this immediate area. The next property to the north is 2057 East 79th. And again, similar to 2065 79th, that property is also owned by the City of Cleveland Land Bank, and it was demolished in late 2015 or early 2016. Just a recap on kind of this quadrant between Carnegie and Euclid, and between 79th and 81st Street. Historically, in approximately 1994, there were approximately 9 single-family homes in this quadrant. In the early 2000s, that number was reduced to approximately 6 single-family homes. And today, there are 2 single-family homes within this quadrant. So over the last 15, 16 years, the number of homes in this area has significantly diminished. 10 of these properties within this quadrant are currently owned by the City of Cleveland Land Bank. Next slide, please. A quick project description. So we are proposing a redevelopment of the property for commercial single tenant use, a financial center. The tenant or end user is Bank of America, who's one of the largest financial institutions in the country. The redevelopment will include newly paved asphalt parking lot, curb cuts along Carnegie and East 79th Street, perimeter landscaping, handicap parking, site lighting, and 2 bike racks. The building size is approximately 3,968 feet. The lot size is approximately 0.8 acres, a height of 1 story or approximately 20 feet, parking for 33 vehicles, including 2 handicap stalls. And the project or the development will create approximately 12 full-time new employees. Next slide, please. Approvals that we have received thus far: the Euclid Corridor Design Review for the demolition of the 2 structures received unanimous approval on April 30th, 2020. The Cleveland Land Bank approved our acquisition of both of the land bank parcels, both 2057 and 2065 East 79th Street, on May 6th, 2020. And we received approval of our valuations from the independent third-party appraiser just last week. The Planning Commission approved unanimously demolition of the two buildings as well on June 5th, 2020. Next slide, please. The existing conditions. So I just want to give you a feel, or the board a feel, for the location and the existing conditions. So this is a view heading eastbound on Carnegie, and an arrow points to the 7911 Carnegie parcel. Next slide, please. Again, very similar, heading west on Carnegie. The former service station is on your right, the white building with the yellow awning. On the left, but where the white building is shown right now on the south side of Carnegie, currently stands Dunkin' Donuts. And then there's a small out parcel on the corner on the south side. Next slide, please. This is a view heading south on Carnegie. Again, the land bank parcels are pointed out, and Ms. Colston's single family home is shown facing Carnegie. Next slide, please. Existing conditions of 7911 Carnegie, you can see it's certainly been left to go. There's some improvements that need to be made. Based on my experience and expertise in this field, there's not a commercial business that I am aware of who could purchase this property, renovate it, and make a reasonable return on their investment. The highest and best use for this property and surrounding properties is for retail redevelopment, and that was also shown or exhibited in the appraisals that were done for the land bank properties. The appraiser concluded that the best use of these properties are for redevelopment purposes. Next slide, please. For the next few slides, were taken because they show a great graphic representation of the area and the intersection. They're taken from the Ryan Carnegie study. And I'm going to kind of walk through a few things with respect to the intersection in the immediate vicinity. So the intersection that we're looking at here is shown on the slide in the center on the graphic with the red star on the northeast corner. So on the west side of East 79th, we have the Midtown Mixed Use District, and on that southeast corner stands Angie's Soul Cafe. As you see, or will see, and maybe some of you are familiar, Angie sits on 4 parcels that are each 50 feet in depth. So Angie's extends into the community approximately 200 feet. North of Angie's, there is a vacant 2 or 3 story apartment building that's been vacant for some time, and I think Anthony Whitfield can maybe talk about potential reuses for that building. And then further to the north is the Presbyterian Church. On the east side of East 79th, at the corner of Euclid, there's the CVS. On the southeast, or the northwest corner, I'm sorry. And then directly next to it is the Good Karma Brands property with the tower. As you head south in that quadrant, many of those, and heading towards Carnegie, many of those homes are, as I stated earlier, are no longer present, and many of them are owned by the land bank.
Could you excuse me 1 second?
Yes.
This is a very thorough presentation. In fact, I think it's maybe in some ways too thorough for what our needs are here today.
Okay.
Could you just look at trying to address, because we have 2 variance requests here, and I think one of them you're going to fulfill. That's the bike racks.
Yep.
So if you could just hone in on that, I mean, that's the piece of business we have to deal with today.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. Let's see. I guess you're to the site plan. So can we back up 1 slide? I just
Sure, absolutely. Wherever you want me to leave.
So this is from the Ryan Carnegie study and the proposed land use. And I think what I want to show here, they created 3 districts here: the industrial district, the multi or mixed use transition district, and on the east end, you'll notice what they're calling residential support or a retail district. So the properties highlighted in red that you see on the east side of this slide, 1.4 acres, 0.7 acres, that is the Angie Soul Food. The ½ acre is the acre that we are talking about today, and then directly east is the 0.7 acres at 81st Street. If you can go to the next slide, we can talk about the site plan. So the proposed site plan, initially in our previous meetings for the Euclid Corridor Committee, we presented a site plan that was, I would call a traditional retail site plan with parking in the front and a building centrally located on the property and drives surrounding it. We took the board's and the planning commission's comments or suggestions very seriously about relocating that building or positioning that building in an urban type setting up along the street, and worked closely with our client and with staff to situate the building such that we could respect the existing building setbacks and provide a green space buffer zone along the immediate street way while still achieving the same desired results that the city and the Fairfax community strongly would like to see here. With respect to the site plan, just real quick, the proposed building you see at the southwest corner of the property is approximately the 4,000 square feet. We have direct walkability access to the building on both Carnegie and on East 79th. Vehicular access is via a limited access, right in, right out approach on Carnegie Street. There's parking provided for just east of the building. And then there is an access point along East 79th in the rear of the building. The building can be accessed by pedestrians both from Carnegie and on the side or where the handicap parking is. There's 2 doors there. And then there is drive-through ATMs that have been located at the rear of the premise and still provide convenient ingress and egress, safe ingress and egress for customers to get in and get out back into the roadway network. I think we're finding a lot, and the banks are, that, and a lot of these retailers are in this new COVID world that we live in, that access to services without getting out of your car, limited contact, is becoming more and more important. The next slide, please. So this is the same site plan, and we've overlaid or shown the zoning on the parcels, which I think were explained by Elizabeth early, but the physical characteristics of the general retail property make it impossible to develop to today's standards without the use of additional property. If you look at similar properties like Angie's, Dunkin' Donuts, to name two, the depth of these lots are approximately 200 feet. The property is not deep enough today to support meaningful development, and safe ingress and egress from the public streets, meet parking requirements, and provide the necessary landscape buffers desired in the district. For comparison's sake, the depth of our lot that we propose is approximately 210 feet. So we're about 10 feet deeper than the immediately adjacent lots, both to the west and to the south. Next slide, please. This is a plan that shows just a quick overview of what the green space would look like, both around at the storefront, along the street fronts, and then to the north and east of the property, to give you an idea of just how much green and landscape can be introduced. Next slide, please. Sample elevations. This is a south-facing elevation. The signage is just shown for schematic or sizing purposes. This is the elevation that would face Carnegie. Next slide, please. The east elevation would face the Islamic Center University, and then the parking lot. Next slide, please. This is the west elevation, or the elevation that would face East 79th Street. And again, we show one of the bike racks got cut off there, but the two bike racks, each one can hold a minimum of 2 bicycles, and those are strategically located at the Carnegie sidewalk at the storefront. Next slide, please. This is the north elevation that would face CVS. Next slide, please. Proposed floor plan, just to give you an idea, perimeter offices with windows. The right side of the business or the building is the operations portion, and then there'll be standard bank branch, walk-up teller, and then a convenient 24-hour access ATM within the building footprint that's only accessible via bank card. Next slide, please. These are prototypical renderings, just to give you an idea on colors and feel. This is not the exact building that would be built, but wanted to provide some perspective as far as the type of structure that would be built here. This building has an attached drive-through, which you kind of see in two of the renderings on the left side, but these will have remote ATMs or drive-throughs due to the requirement of proximity and demand to have that building right up on the street. Next slide, please. This is a sample of those remote ATM drive-throughs that we talked about. Next slide, please. And a letter of support from Councilman Griffin regarding the importance of this development to both the city of Cleveland, to the Fairfax community, and to his ward in general. And that is all I have.
Could you then just quickly address the two variance requests that you have before us?
Well, I believe the variance request that we had, the use variance. So the proposed bank facility within a multifamily property. So the corner property is the general retail, I believe it is. And then the other 3 properties are multifamily. If you look on the future land use in the Rhea and Carnegie study, this corner, this quadrant has been identified as a retail redevelopment site. So we believe that it's in line with the long-term plan of both Fairfax and the city of Cleveland. However, when these parcels would be consolidated for development, the zoning would roll down to the less intensive use or to the multifamily use. So that was the use variance that we had sought. Additionally, I think the initial site plan that was submitted to Building and Housing did not show bike racks. And so there was a request, I think, made on the submittal for bike racks, but we do intend to install 2 bike racks, and each bike rack would hold a minimum of 2 bikes. Additionally, when the introduction was being made, there was another discussion, and it was new to me, about an area variance. So I guess I would defer back to the board with respect to that, if that is applicable here, and in what capacity.
Mr. Donovan, you're muted if you were speaking.
Do you have any insight into that question, Maurice? Is there
The question being?
Is there an area variance as well as a use variance?
That would be, let me go back to the legal standard.
Right.
That would be Lori Wagner.
This is Lori Wagner. The area variance was for no bicycle spaces. The applicant has testified that they will have bicycle spaces, so that's no longer applicable.
Okay. All right, good. Let's go back to the general question. Is there anyone that's joining us for this meeting that wants to add any further testimony?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is Anthony Whitfield, Director of Economic Development at Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation. Thank you for your time. We are in full support of this project. We've been working on this for about a year. It is consistent with our master plan, and some of the development we have seen for probably the past 10 years at this intersection has changed and has been underdeveloped for quite some time. We collaborated with Midtown Development because it's important that we develop at our borders and that we are seamless as you transition between communities. And along the way came the opportunity to join in with the GCLI study, known publicly as Reed and Carnegie, again, so that we are consistent in how we develop as you transverse from one community to another. We've been consistent with this with Burtonville Car to the south, with University Circle to the east. We began 4 or 5 years ago. We have Proteus Partners on the southwest corner. We now have Dunkin' Donuts. That was a 4-year development on the southeast corner. And Angie's Soul Food Cafe, which is returned to the neighborhood on the northwest corner. This corner northeast has been very difficult for us. So the chance meeting we had with LRC and their client makes this very, very realistic and possible to bring 4 corners of commercial retail development to our neighborhood and to our adjoining neighbors. And we'd like to see this occur. I think zoning is an issue. We have talked with city planning and our planner, Kim Scott, about, and also with Midtown, about a larger zoning change at some point in time, but did not want to hold this up at this point. But we want to look comprehensively at what we rezone, and so it makes sense for the long haul.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Whitfield.
Thank you.
Anyone else? City planning.
Mr. Chairman, as stated previously, they removed they added the bicycle parking rack, so number 2 is not required. This site plan, we commend the developer for working with the city planning staff and coming up with a much more urban site plan. This project is very consistent with what's happening on the other 3 corners of this intersection, so we support this project.
I assume the councilman is not on the web.
No, I do not see Councilman Griffin on the the list.
We'll note that he did have a letter of support that's been submitted, so we'll note that. Any last comments before we go to request a motion? If not, okay, board, anyone ready to give me a motion here?
I have a comment, Chair,
Sure.
Master Chair. I thought I heard him said there was some tanks in the ground. Are they planning on taking them up? Did I hear that correctly or not?
The appellant want to answer that question? It was a former gas station, I believe.
Yeah, they are historical tanks. They have been removed.
All right.
Great.
Back to you. Requesting a motion.
Alana Faith has her hand raised. Go ahead, Alana.
Yeah, just a couple questions before we make a motion, please.
Sure.
There are existing trees on the part of the second and third lots. What are your plans to in the landscaping plan? What are your plans to replant some trees to make up for those that are being taken out?
We will be replanting trees and certainly will provide a very well thought out landscaping plan that meets the city of Cleveland's requirements. I think that it's important to provide a buffer both to the north and to the east, as well as incorporating some streetscape, and that's what we tried to do with this greenscape plan. And I think you can, or green space plan, can look at what was done at Dunkin' Donuts across the street as a great example of how we can introduce and keep landscaping in these urban areas where today they, may otherwise not be available.
And a second question, how does the curb cut on Carnegie align with the curb cut for Dunkin' Donuts?
I believe we are inside of that curb cut. So the Dunkin' property, the Dunkin' curb cut is farther to the east.
Okay.
It's down almost one more lot.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please.
I have a question.
Given the testimony from the representative and his well-documented facts and infographics and support letter from the councilman and the support of city planning and a Fairfax Development Corporation, I'd like to move that we approve the variances for this case.
We should note that we don't need the bicycle parking. That has been met.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, I believe Ms. Barnes was going to ask a question. Ms. Barnes, did you have an additional question?
Yes, I do. Given to the high traffic on that corner, how are we going to have as far as safety concern with the traffic? Because there's a lot of high traffic coming down Carnegie, 7th and 9th and Carnegie. You got a curb cut coming out there facing Dunkin' Donuts? Are you going to make it all go onto the light?
We have proposed a limited access curb cut on Carnegie. So the only way to enter the property would be westbound Carnegie. You'd make a right in, and the only way to leave the property onto Carnegie directly would be to make a right out. So it's a right in, right out on Carnegie. Similar to, I think, similar to what they have at Dunkin' coming out.
Yes, I believe that's the same situation at Dunkin' Donuts.
I believe theirs is just a right out, though.
Okay. Ms. Barnes, does that answer your question?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to second on his motion for approval.
All right. Liz, can you do a roll call, please? Liz, can you do?
Ms. Barnes? Ms. Barnes, you're muted.
We're doing the roll call, Ms. Barnes.
Yes, Ms. Barnes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Ms. Faith?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Calendar 20-63 is granted.
We will ratify this decision next week, send you a letter, and you can proceed on your project. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
And Alana, can we read in the next case?
as soon as it's on the screen.
Take that patience pill.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe we're ready to go.
All right. Hang on. There we go. Calendar number 20-061 at 4117 Rocky River Drive. Lexi Properties owner proposes to construct a 34.
Before you continue, can everyone please mute? Yeah, thank you. She has Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let me start over. Calendar number 20-061 at 4117 Rocker Drive. Lexi Properties owner proposes to construct a 34,726 square foot, 2-story animal hospital in an A1 one-family residential district and a C1 residence office district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
All right, who's got their loudspeaker going on here?
I've muted just about everyone, Mr. Chairman.
I seem to have somebody there that's obviously creating.
I think I may have found the culprit. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Liz, can we get the history of the project, please?
Yes, the property was originally single family and general retail in 1929. In 2009, the general retail portion was changed to residence office. In the history, I found that in the records room, church was erected on the property in 1947. In 1961, the property was remodeled for an animal hospital. 1967, a parking lot was erected on the property for the animal hospital. And in 1969, a permit was issued for an addition to the animal hospital. There are no variances on file for this address and nothing of note in the more recent history. Back to you, Chairman.
All right, we're going to double back now. We're going to swear everyone in for this case. If you are planning to give testimony, we ask that you participate in this exercise. Marlene will read you what's on the screen now. Your reply will be "I do" with your name, so we know who is signing up to give testimony. Marlene, take it away.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Please respond with your name.
William Rice, I do.
Ruth Rice, I do.
Cindy
Adam
Nagel, I
Davenport,
do.
I do.
Lily Evans and Margaret LaRosa, we do.
Councilman Slife, I do.
Architect Roberto Pineda with Annex Creative. I do.
All right, do we miss anybody?
Ben Campbell, West Park Camps Development.
All right. Anyone else?
Mr. Davenport, did you?
He did.
I did, yes.
Please.
Just checking.
If you are giving testimony for this case, we have to swear you in. That's what we're doing right now. Marlene, ask the question, do you swear that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? If you are going to testify, your response would be "I do" with your name. All right, last call. Lori, can we have the standard by which we're going to be judging this case?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the front yard setback, side yard setback, landscaping, and off-street parking regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variances, appellant must prove the Denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship, particularly to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. Please note that section 32904C of the codified ordinances may limit the board's ability to grant the requested front yard variance.
All right. Who is going to represent the request? Who is going to give the argument to make this a project?
Do we have a representative from Lexi Properties?
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Can you identify yourself and begin? And again, I would remind you that if we could try to have our arguments fixated on the variance requests, that will make the meeting go a little bit smoother and quicker. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Adam Davenport. I think I see Boris's screen going in and out right now. It looks like he is having difficulties.
Would that be R. Panetto?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, is he here alone? Is there someone else with the project?
Hello?
Hello, who am I speaking with? Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think they're having technical difficulties. There's a little exclamation point that they're over their picture, so I believe they're experiencing bandwidth restrictions. Up, there we go.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Please proceed. Tell us your name.
Yes. We're back.
Okay, welcome. Give us your name and please begin to tell us what you'd like to do. What are we going to do here, Maurice?
I'm waiting for some direction. Yeah, yes, we can. Please go ahead with your presentation. Tell me when to change the slides. Thank you. It would be nice if you would introduce yourselves.
My name is Boris Pakush. I'm the owner and veterinarian of West Park Animal Hospital. We're here obviously requesting permission to have variances in the construction of our new veterinary hospital. What I'd like to start by saying is that West Park Animal Hospital is not about me. It's been there for 70 years. It was actually started in 1950 by Dr. Robert Meister. He practiced there for approximately 46 years by himself with several staff members. I purchased the hospital in 1996, and I practiced by myself with those same staff members for several years. 2003, we got to a point where we grew to the point where I was one of 6 veterinarians and we had 30 staff members. We decided to build a new building. In 2003, we moved into a beautiful new building with 6 exam rooms. It was 7,000 square feet. It was the building that you just saw in the pictures just a moment ago. 17 years, we've grown to a point where I'm now one of 22 veterinarians that work at West Park Animal Hospital. And we have approximately 90 staff members and an annual payroll over $6 million. We've completely outgrown our practice. to a point where we are no longer able to provide the service that our patients require. And we really do need a larger facility. And we're really trying to create a facility that is large enough for us to grow into over the next 20 years, but also a facility that is important to keep in West Park and in the city of Cleveland. We work in a great neighborhood. It's a very densely populated neighborhood with great families, lots of dogs. The majority of our clients walk to our practice for their appointments. In order to provide the service we're trying to provide for them, we really do need a larger facility. But in the same sense, we're trying to build a building that is inviting to the neighbors. We want those clients to feel free to walk to their appointments, which is why we're trying to structure the building closer to the street. It's a more inviting, welcoming atmosphere. You know, for those reasons, we're hoping that you'd grant the variances.
Can I ask a question?
If you go to the next slide, is the building. I kind of will, the next one. This is our current facility that we work in now. If you go to the next slide, new conceptual drawing of the new building. If we can move forward one slide.
It just takes a second.
Let me ask a question at this point. I've been on the board for about 20 years, and I sometimes see presentations.
Oh, sorry, that's okay.
Maurice, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. The reason I want to interrupt this and ask a couple of very important questions. I think it's going to determine where.
So on this particular slide here, you know,
hold on.
This is what's going to be kind of what we're trying to do.
I think there's a tremendous delay between us and the applicant on the, and we're also getting a lot of feedback from them as well.
Could I ask the appellant a question?
Yes.
Have you had a community meeting about your project?
We have not had a community meeting specifically about the hospital, but I have been communicating with the neighbors to bring the board project to make sure that if there are any hardships that we would be creating, that they would be addressed prior to the construction.
Right. Well, I think that, you know, from, again, my experience on this board for going over 20 years now, I think it behooves us to take a time out, have you meet with the neighbors. As you said, you know, you have some goals in terms of the facility and what it needs to be in terms of its growth. At the same time, you want to leave behind something that fits in well with the neighborhood. And I think the neighbors would want to add some questions, get some questions and answers, so they would feel more comfortable with whatever is going to be proceeding forward. So the reason I bring this up is we could do this whole presentation at the end of it, say, hey, what do you guys think? Why don't we have a community meeting? And we just go back to square one. And I'd rather just jump ahead here. If anybody says, hey, I think a community meeting is the way to go, let's get that lined up and then have you come back to the board after that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out that Santiago typed in the chat window that he did meet previously with a community meeting, and now we have Councilman Slife with his hand raised.
Okay.
Thank you. And just briefly, I have received a couple questions and comments from residents about this project. Most of them actually concerned about kind of area-wide parking, maybe a little bit beyond the exact scope of this. But I have a concern of just the feasibility of holding a public meeting at this stage relative to the project timeline. I'm just not certain how we hold meetings when we're all trying to not meet.
Well, we'll call it a wedding.
Yeah. I also have Ben Campbell here from the Development Corporation who would be able to comment on kind of past public input prior to me having joined City Council as well.
Yeah,
good.
Mr. Chairman, Marty Keene, just 1 second. Marty Keene apparently held the previous meeting, community meeting. That was per Cynthia Nagel in the chat. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Ben Campbell, West Park CAMS. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Yes, this has been in the making for at least a couple of years now. So there has been some prior communications. And even though we didn't have a community meeting leading up to this hearing, I hand delivered 25 flyers to adjacent commercial users and residents on Sedalia and Melgrave. The two adjacent commercial users said they had no objection to the proposal, and I only heard from one resident, and that was a voicemail where he said he didn't object to the building design, but as Councilman Slight alluded to, he was just concerned about on-street parking on the side street. So we're supporting this, and I did send letters outlining our support to Secretary Kukla on Friday.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we do have a few residents that are here to comment as well.
Well, I'm going to give it back to the appellant then. I thought I would offer that idea. You're right, it is. So at this point, I'm going to give it back to him and let him complete his presentation. So you want to continue your presentation?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. What I wanted to also point out, as far as the building is concerned, we're trying to also create an area here in the parking lot where the entryway is, where we could actually also hold community events, like pet-related, obviously, community events, or dog washes and things like that could raise money for the rescue organizations that we work with. So it's all in the sense and the feel of a community hospital. If we could move to the next slide, if that's okay. And before I talk about this slide, I do want to mention specifically that as far as the meeting is concerned, the community meeting, there was one obviously that everybody's bringing up that I failed to mention, but that was a year or so ago in relation to the entire project, but it was mostly related to the parking lot that you will see that we constructed half a block away or so there to the north of our current site. What we've done so far, we've already invested almost $900,000 in this project in the acquisition of property and in the construction of this parking lot here. We've constructed 47 parking spaces there for both visitors and really in putting forward.
I think we've lost them again.
I think we have.
What I said.
We have Mr. Bowen with his hand raised. Mr. Bowen?
Good morning. I just raised my hand because I'm a proponent for this project. I know he's worked with staff a lot about moving the building up towards the street edge to make it more walkable neighborhood. I bring all 6 of my dogs there too, so I have a vested interest in seeing my dogs get good care from Boris, and I just want to say I'm a proponent for this project and the variances needed to make this more walkable neighborhood.
I believe we have the applicant back online again. Can we continue, sir?
So can you move to the next slide, please? So in this slide, what it's kind of trying to show is obviously our site plan. The dotted line to the north of the rectangle, that's the current building that we are working in right now, the 7,000 square foot animal hospital. And our proposed building is to the south of that. We're trying to create access to the lot from both Rocky River Drive and Malgrave, but there is one delivery entry with a one-way drive behind the building to bring deliveries to the facility. The next slide, please. The next slide, please.
Did you want, this is the building elevations up right now. Is that what's showing? Did you want, this is the building elevation up right now. Is that what's showing?
Oh, no, right now, oh, yes. Now there. So this is the building elevations in the upper elevation is the north side of the building. That would be the main entryway. The middle one would be the back, that's the south side of the buildings, off Sedalia. And then the two lower ones are both the front and the rear of the building. The rear is to the left and the front is to the right. Next slide, please. And Roberto, this would be more of the...
Yeah, that would be the last, actually, that's the proposed site, which is similar to the architectural site plan. But there is another slide, which is shows the current building.
I believe that's the current conditions?
That's the current conditions? That is correct, yes. And you can see that on the upper corner of the page, that's the existing facility currently in practice. And then at the bottom left corner is the church that is no longer there, has been demolished.
And I think that's our entire presentation.
Correct. So we can go back to the variance requests. No, go back. So we're asking for 5 variances. And the first variance is based on the existing location of the animal hospital. The existing building is still there in the same location. We are taking the opportunity to enlarge the building to meet all the requirements that the space needs that now. We're making sure that it is within the required zoning. And the building, the existing building has been already there for how many years, Mark?
The existing building's been there since 2003. But the practice was there since 1950. Are you able to hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Are you?
Oh, okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Are you finished with your presentation then? Mr. Donovan, you're muted in case you were trying to speak.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Sorry about that. In terms of parking, it notes that you need 70 parking spaces. and you say you have 36, I presume those are on site. There's no mention per se of the satellite parking area that you said you've already created, which is about another 47 parking spaces. Hello? Did you hear that?
I think we've lost them again, Mr. Donovan.
Yes, I guess we have.
Gentlemen, did you hear the question?
I think we've lost them again. I can hear you now. Did you hear the question? No, can you repeat that, please?
Okay. One of the variances you need relates to parking. You need 70 parking spaces. You claim 36. I presume those are on-site parking spaces. There's no mention of the satellite lot that you've created with 47 spaces. Do you intend to have that satellite lot be used in conjunction with this operation? Is there an answer there?
I think they're still having technical difficulties. They keep popping in and out.
Mr. Chair, I'll jump in. This is Adam Davenport. It is used for employee parking to my knowledge.
We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
So
Yes.
employee
Can you hear us?
parking is,
So.
Whoever's, excuse me, whose ever phone is ringing in the
Parking
background.
lot, the parking spaces?
Oh, come on.
That's not a.
Members of the board, this is ridiculous waste of people's time. Are we able to get a move on? Like, if they're having technical difficulties, I've got other things to do today as well. I just can't sit here waiting.
we share your frustration on that point.
Everyone else has a good connection. If we don't, then I think we should move on.
Can you hear
Okay.
us? Can you hear
Okay.
us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I apologize for our difficulty. Can you repeat the question?
The question had to do with parking. You need 70 parking spaces. You're claiming 36. I'm assuming those 36 are part of the site plan. And I'm wondering about the 47 and the satellite parking area you referred to before. Do you intend to apply those to the formula?
Yes, that's correct, sir. We do. Those spots are close enough to the building that I do feel that they provide enough access to our clients and to our staff.
Okay. So you would meet the parking requirement. You wouldn't need a variance for that.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to those. There's other people who want to weigh in on this particular project. Let's, Maurice, could you help me? And
Sure. We have Cynthia Nagel with her hand raised.
let's go.
We have William after that.
Hi, may I speak now? This is Cynthia Nagel.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Hi. I've been a resident here since 1988, and my lot butts right up to Dr. Boris's lot on Melgrave. Actually, my house is pictured in one of those slides. I also take my dogs there, and I'm in favor of this project. I only do want to bring up, for safety reasons, a couple of concerns. There's now going to be a driveway that exits out onto Melgrave. And because we do have a lot of walking traffic, I was wondering if the city could make that a left turn only so that the cars will be directed towards Rocky River Drive. And then secondly, where there is on-street parking, like from my neighbor across the street at 17210 Melgrave, if we could make that a no parking from his point up to Rocky River Drive, I think that would alleviate congestion and also make it a safer situation. Those are my only concerns, but I'm very much in favor of this project, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have William, and then we have Murray Evans.
This is William.
Go for it.
I live on Sedalia. I'm the second house from the corner. I'm glad that we have these people as neighbors, but I have a couple of concerns. My wife and I both do. One is the parking. I can appreciate them putting in the new lot, and I think that's great, but the reality is that with the building, the new building being proposed where it is, people are going to park on Sedalia Avenue and walk because it's closer, and parking in that lot so far away and walk that distance. We already have a problem with patients doing that. And it's not just the parking, it's that they use our lawn for their dogs to relieve themselves before they get to the lot, get to the hospital. There's that. And the second concern my wife we both have is the new building being so close to both Sedalia and Rocky River Drive is not being able to see traffic. Being able to pull out onto Rocky River Drive without having to actually pull out into the street to see the oncoming traffic, or vice versa, wanting to turn on Sedalia, being the car that gets hit because somebody wants to pull out onto Rocky River Drive. I think they need to be farther away from both Sedalia and Rocky River Drive. That's really our only major concerns.
Okay. Next.
Mr. Chairman, we have Murray Evans.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Murray Evans and Margaret LaRosa. We live at 17206 Melgrave. We find Dr. Boris a very good neighbor. We frequent the West Park Animal Hospital ourselves. Our concerns, however, are also about parking and traffic. With that exit onto Melgrave from the property, we would request a left turn only onto Rocky River Drive and not routed down Melgrave. And also, we would request a no parking in front of our house, which is 17206 Melgrave, adjacent to the 17210 that Cindy talked about, and we're diagonally across the street from Cindy. We already get a lot of parking in front of our house for the bar. We don't need additional parkers in front of there so that we can't even see clearance to get out of our driveway. So that would be our request, that the driveway exiting onto Melgrave be left turn only, routed to Rocky River Drive, and no parking in front of 17206 Melgrave. Other than that, like I said, we find Dr. Bodman and his associates, or Dr. Bodman, it's my position, sorry. We find Dr. Boris a wonderful neighbor. Did you have anything else to say, Margaret?
No, I agree with everything.
She agrees with everything I just said. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bowen, did you have another comment, or did you just have your hand raised from before?
My hand was raised from before, but I am a proponent of it.
Thank you. Ms. Kukla, you had your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, could we get William's last name, please?
William Rice, R-I-C-E.
Thank you.
And those are the extent of the hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let us go to city planning and see what they have to say.
Mr. Davenport.
Thank you. So this project has been in the works for quite some time now, since I first came on to city planning a couple of years ago. It is a sort of abnormal request for a current use of a building to tear down their own building and build a new building at the site. But we are glad that they are expanding their business overall. And I think they're working with a smart site plan. I think they're using as much of the site as possible, and you want to get as close to Rocky River Drive within reason as possible as well, to keep the business situated on the main thoroughfare and drive, and apart from the neighborhood residences, so to speak. So I think the site plan itself is designed in a smart way, and that those variances are trying to be addressed as carefully as possible. Ms. Kukla on Friday, well as Maurice, did raise something to the concern that the setback may not be able to be granted by this board. I'm not sure if there's a decision on that, but if that is the case, then we can work either with the applicant to resolve that very, very specific issue, or the councilman and myself can work on amending that legislation and allowing this setback to happen. There is quite the degree of setback on Rocky River Drive, and I think this was like a legacy piece of legislation to try and address that back probably in the early 2000s. But I think as a main retail corridor, you want the businesses close to the street and apart from the neighborhood residences, for much of the concerns that people have raised so far during the call. Thank you.
Adam, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
All these suggestions about left turn, no parking, all this stuff, have you looked at those? Are those ideas that could be baked into this plan, or?
They are definitely ideas that could be baked into the plan. I've checked with the traffic and engineering department on how we would go about doing that, and that would be basically a couple signs installed, on their property to address some of these concerns. So it could be baked into the plan if necessary. I think the site, I mean, my personal opinion is that the site plan itself will definitely funnel people in off Rocky River Drive into their customer parking lot, and then naturally, given the direction and the large curb cut on Melgrave, that people would exit left and turn left onto Melgrave and then out onto Rocky River Drive. So I think the flow of the parking lot makes sense, and people will be naturally inclined to do so, but we could specifically address it if the board chose to.
Okay. Is there anyone else besides the councilman? I know the councilman likes to speak last. Well, if nobody else, Councilman Slife, would you like to weigh in, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Liz Kukla.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Chairman, this is Liz Kukla. I'm sorry to interrupt, Councilman. Just to clarify, there is the issue with the front setback. The board is restricted in its ability to grant a variance for the front setback per the code section that was read by Ms. Wagner. So we don't have the authority to grant it. From what we can see, what city planning can see from the aerial, there aren't any other buildings that are close enough to the street to set that precedent or the measurement that's baked into that code section to allow this front setback to be granted by you, unless the appellant has some other information that we're not privy to.
Did you understand that, appellant? Basically,
I do. We do understand that. Ms. Kukla was nice enough to send us that in advance. So Roberto and I were able to read it and study it. One question that we would have in that regard would be that the VIP bar on the corner there of Melgrave and Rocky River Drive, it itself has a setback of, and I tape measured it this weekend, it's 13 feet.
Yes, sir, except for you're requesting 8 feet. So it would still be closer than 13 feet. And I believe the variance are restricted to within the same block. Am I correct in that, Mr. Riccardi or Ms. Wagner?
That is correct.
So we don't know whether or not the VIP had actually followed the formula to designate their setback at where it ended up, or if they just went and built the building without a permit. I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes you got to ask those questions.
I believe Mr.
If the applicant cannot demonstrate that it's entitled to that setback or that the board has the ability to grant that setback, I think what the councilman and planning are saying is that they would introduce a amendment, an ordinance to amend the mat setback, which may be what you're going to have to do here.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Schleif had his hand raised.
Mr. Schleif,
Yes,
Councilman, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to kind of wrap it all up, I feel like you're moving closer to a motion. The zoning, for just to kind of take it out to the broader level, the zoning along Rocky River Drive is kind of rather chaotic. You have a multitude of different uses and building styles and setbacks, and something I've been speaking with staff about is a general need to think through ways to clean up the street from a zoning standpoint. Personally, I agree that having buildings closer to the street rather than having deep setbacks is beneficial. I think that it has, aside from being nice aesthetically, it has the value of kind of slowing down traffic because it starts to make the street feel smaller. And in many ways, this portion of Rocky River Drive is sometimes used by some as an interstate to get to and from the airport, and not treated as a street through the neighborhood. I've heard what the residents have said, and I think the left turn only as you're exiting onto Melgrave is a reasonable request, and we can work through that. And I can commit to working with residents and Dr. Pakish as well as reinforcing to staff as well as to residents where it is appropriate and inappropriate to park. Right here today, I'm reluctant to commit to any no parking on any of the side streets simply because I don't want that to escalate and become problematic for residents who would like their neighbors or their friends to come and be able to park there. But what could be approved at this body would be overly broad and problematic in that sense. But on the whole, I think that this is a good project. I'm eager that the animal hospital is looking to expand and has been so successful in hiring. And I do think that Dr. Pakish is committed to being a good neighbor, and we just need to have some conversations about making sure parking during construction and after construction is going to be beneficial to everyone in the immediate surroundings.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there anyone else who would like to offer any last opinions, ideas, suggestions, etc.?
We have Mr. Rice.
Yeah, is there a precedent for them putting the building so close to Sedalia Avenue? It looks like they're right up to the sidewalk.
Well,
this is Councilman Schleif. There's Mr. Rice, are you referring to, how would you define precedent? Because there's certainly precedent throughout the city of building up to property lines, but maybe more hyper locally on Rocky River Drive, it would be perhaps newer.
Well, that's from the beginning. That was one of my concerns. The building being so close to Sedalia Avenue that we could not see traffic without literally pulling out onto Rocky River Drive in order to make a turn. And it kind of sounds like all we're talking about here is the setback off of Rocky River Drive, and Sedalia is being forgotten. Well, There's a lot of people that live on Sedalia, and a lot of people use that street to get to and from other side streets. We're the second house from the corner. We see the traffic, and I'm just concerned about them being so close and not being able to see the traffic clearly, that people want to turn either onto or from Sedalia Avenue, with that building being so close, or the new building being so close to the street.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that is variance number 3.
Well, I don't have easy access to that document.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in. He's proposing to place the building 5 feet off of Sedalia and then 8 feet off of Rocky River. So that will be back from the sidewalk. So there's 5 feet back from the sidewalk on Sedalia and 8 feet back from the sidewalk on Rocky River. I'm sorry, 8 feet 2 inches.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Lori Wagner, can I speak?
Surely.
It appears, and planning can correct me if I'm wrong, the third setback does deal with, as Ms. Kukla said, a 5-foot setback on the side yard, and that is one that the board, I believe, has the authority to grant, as opposed to the front yard setback. But it has definitely been written up for being too close to Sedalia, and that's something the board has to decide.
To the appellant, architecturally, could you slide your building in a way that she gives a little bit more breathing room on Sedalia?
In regards to the side setback, it is important to note that the property line is on the inside face of the sidewalk. So if we take a dimension from the corner of the building all the way to the curb, it's a little bit less than 20 feet.
Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. Davenport with us.
Yes, Mr. Davenport?
So I think I think the problem that the resident is describing is that the sight lines from, like, say a stop sign on Sedalia, and so for reference, like parking spaces I think are usually about 8 by 11 feet or 9 by 12 feet to fit a car. And so the length, 8 feet 2 inches from the sidewalk, if the stop sign was placed there at that the intersection of the sidewalks, you would have space to see as a driver down Rocky River Drive in either direction. I think that personally, I think the more major concern is that sight line rather than the setback off of Sedalia itself. With proper, landscaping on Sedalia, the building could feel buffered from the residential area, and that's something that we can cover in design review if that's a concern of the board.
All those cars are going to be parked there along Mount Grade.
All right. So, Evan, you'd be in favor of just leaving the building where it's at this point?
I think that's smart, because otherwise we have, quote, more dead space, near Sedalia and the building. I think you want that room to the north for the parking lot and for the flow of traffic. Otherwise, I guess the building would become smaller if they needed to keep the same number of parking spaces.
All right.
Or the green space to relieve pets or something like that. I'm sure it could be worked out, but I think you want that that negative space, so to speak, to the north, and you want as much space occupied as possible.
All right. Board members, let's hear your thoughts on this.
Mr. Chairman, we have the applicant would like to make a comment.
Yes, it is important to also note that the proposed building is going to go up while the existing building is still fully functional. So we are providing some space, some buffer for the proposed building to be enclosed while construction is happening, while the owner can still proceed with his regular day-to-day practice.
Gotcha. All right, thank you for that. Again, back to the board here. Any comments, any questions from you prior to seeking a motion here?
Mr. Chairman, we have Alana and Liz with their hands raised.
Alana, let's hear it.
To the appellant, the curb cut and entry drive off of Sedalia, is that is your service drive? Is that going to be two-way traffic, or is that meant to be one-way traffic?
One-way traffic.
And it will be entering into Sedalia only or exiting onto Sedalia only?
It's exiting.
Exit.
Okay, so that can be.
So you're going to be coming through you will be coming through Melgrave down for delivery, and that will be the exit out into
Okay, and it will be signed appropriately.
Correct.
Yes. Second question, to the residents' concern about the dogs using the front lawn for their bathroom business before they go into the hospital. Do you have an exterior dog run or a place for the animals to use the bathroom before they go in?
So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So basically what I would say, and I apologize to Mr. Rice that was occurring. I was unaware of that. I will address that obviously as quickly as I can. But with the building, the way the entry is to the new building, our clients will actually be directed away from him. So this new building theoretically will be protecting his property from dog walking purposes. Not that it should have ever happened in the beginning, but I don't feel that that'll be an issue on his side of the street.
Okay. Are you able to put in an exterior designated area into the site plan at this point?
Yes. And
Okay.
we're circling that now on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, the area that we are referring to is where the entrance is, where the canopy between the parking and the proposed building. There is a large rectangular long area for pets.
That'll be bathroom for clients to go.
Correct.
Okay. In the area, I'm looking at the site plan. So in the area to the east of the awning, you'll be able to put in a bathroom area?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And if you go to the perspective, you will be able to see the area.
Okay. And are you appointment only?
So we are 90% appointment, but when there are obviously emergencies that occur, and then those emergencies will many times call in advance, and we just allow them to come, and or some just come because of situations such as a pet being hit by a car or something like that.
Right. Are you a 24/7 emergency?
We're open 7 days a week, but we close at 1 a.m. and we open back up at 8 a.m.
Okay. And under the canopy area by the entrance, are you able to put in some exterior bench seating so that you have,
Yes,
outside waiting?
Absolutely, 100%. I would like to have, in my own personal schematics I draw, I do have outdoor bench seating, just to also create that atmosphere, that neighborhood atmosphere.
Okay. All right. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we still have Ms. Kukla.
Mr. Chairman, regarding the parking on the satellite lot, I'm not sure if I heard who owns that property. We don't have a lease agreement in our file for that.
Do the applicants have a response?
Oh, I apologize. I heard the question about the parking lot, and there's something about it not being on file. But we did purchase Lexi Properties, which is the owner of the property of West Park Animal Hospital, also owns that lot, and I pay property taxes on it.
Okay. So you would be theoretically leasing the lot from yourself.
I actually, West Park Animal Hospital is owned by a corporation in the name of Trizub Incorporated. My accountant recommended in 1996 that I have one business, a company that owns the business and a company that owns the property. So the business and the property are two separate companies.
Okay. Then to Ms. Kukla's point, what we need is a contractual agreement and arrangement between your animal hospital business and the satellite parking lot that you'll be using for employees and potential customers.
I understand. I didn't understand that, but that's certainly obviously easy to accomplish.
Thank you. All right, board. Are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly. I will make the motion that we approve the variance as requested for calendar number 20-0161, noting that section 35707D for the front yard setback we cannot grant. This project is supported by the councilman, the Community Development Corporation, as well as city planning. And before we can ratify the decision, we need a lease from the appellant showing that they can use the parking lot.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Ms. Barnes.
Okay, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Liz Kukla.
Yes.
There was a request to have signage regarding the left-hand turn out on the Mulgrave side. Do you want to make that part of the condition?
Kelly, you introduced a motion. Do you want to add that to your motion?
Is that something we can enforce though? I mean, I thought that city planning volunteered and the councilman volunteered to work with the appellant to make sure that the community, maybe we'll make that part of the motion, that city planning and the councilman works with the community to make sure that their parking, their side street parking needs and no parking signs are being addressed properly.
Do you accept that as a second? Ms. Barnes?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the left-hand turn signs were also supposed to be placed inside the private parking lot as well. Or am I wrong?
Right. It was mentioned there, I think, yeah.
So if we could make that part of the motion, would that be all right?
Well, part of the motion was that the signage and the parking, that city planning will, and the councilman will work with the community to make sure that those things are provided.
Marlene, do you second that as part of the motion?
Yes, I second it.
All right, call the roll.
Ms. Faith?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Ms. Barnes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
And Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Calendar 20-61 is granted with conditions.
We will ratify this upon receipt of things like that contract for parking, etc. So don't forget us. Thank you for everyone for coming down. And let's now move on to, I think, is this our last case?
No, Mr. Chairman, I believe we have 5909 Madison.
Okay, is that our last case?
No, then we have 3660 Bosworth.
Let's get it going.
Calendar number 20-044 at 5909 Madison Avenue. Kismer Investments owner proposes to install fencing and parking spaces to existing residential lot in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
All right. Everyone for this case, if you want to give testimony, the idea here is Marlene will swear you in at the end of it. You give us your name and the words "I do." Marlene, take it away.
Swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Jake Murphy from Kismer Investments.
Anyone else?
I do. Adam Davenport, City Planning.
Anyone else?
We have no one else signed up, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Liz, let's have the history of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In the records room, I found a permit was issued in 1891 to erect a single-family dwelling and a shed. There are no variances on file for this address. And in the more recent history, I found that in 2014, there was a certificate of disclosure issued stating that the authorized use of the property is as a single family. And then in March of this year, I found permits applied for to update the bathroom, update the gas lines, and update the electrical. And that's all that I have. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Looking to the law department for the standard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam, members of the board. Appellant is requesting area variances from the off-street parking and fence requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
All right. Tell us what you'd like to do.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Jake Murphy, as I mentioned, and I'm one of the owners of this property. We have gone through a whole house remodel for this property, and we've submitted two separate applications, one for this as a zoning appeal, and then we also have a building permit, which is nearing completion. What we're looking to do is to be able to, as it is an inner city urban living situation, and it is a neighborhood that is coming and up and coming, there's still a level of security in which that we would like to be able to offer the home by providing on-site parking. As to if you're looking at the plan here, to the right of that is vacant land owned by the Cleveland Land Bank, and to the rear of this property is a condemned home. Well, it should be condemned home, which I've made multiple complaints about, that is dilapidated and is causing a concern for homeless activity and also attracting undesirable likes. So what we're trying to do is to regenerate the area. I do own a couple of other properties within the vicinity, and me as a collective, and there's other investors that are out there as well that are trying to bring this area up. And we appreciate the help for the city for the tax abatement in able to achieve that. But what we're trying to do is to be able to have an added security layer to this property. This would be the purpose of the sale, once this goes to sale, would be for a new home buyer or first home buyer, and it would probably go to a single young family. What we're looking to be able to do is have a privacy fence along the rear of the property, which then hides the abomination of the building behind. And then we're also looking to have a 6-foot fence, privacy fence down up into the setback as shown. And I believe the setback is 15 feet. And we're looking to have that because of the desirable vacant land, which is owned by the Cleveland City Land Bank. What we're also looking to be able to do is to alleviate congestion on the street and provide on-site parking or off-street parking that the potential homeowner can have their vehicle placed onto the property and not onto the street. And that is all I have.
Damn.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're muted.
Sorry, I just got visited by some of the construction crew, which is about to work on a space I'm in. So I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of your presentation there.
So, Mr. Donovan, what I'm trying to achieve, being that this is an up and coming area of Ohio City, security still presents an issue. We're making the application for zoning appeals, and we're hoping to have that granted based on the security risk aspect. There is a dilapidated home to the rear of the property that's presenting a security risk to the area, which I've notified the city of Cleveland on numerous times, to which there's no boarding process has been implemented yet. And then there's also vacant land to the left of this plan as shown, which is owned by the City Land Bank, which is overgrown and not maintained. What we're trying to be able to do, this home is being completely remodeled, and we're trying to regenerate in what this area is to bring it up with the rest of Ohio City. This home's going to be marketed to a young family or to a newly married couple or whatever it may be, first home buyer. And what we're looking to be able to do is alleviate congestion on the street and be able to provide on-site parking, which provides then also a security measure to the property. We are at a significant disadvantage with what this is and having this rejected, because there are precedents for on this street alone and on this block that have the exact same land frontage that has allowed vehicular traffic to be able to be parked in this same fashion as we've presented. And we are asking for the zoning or the appeals to be awarded based on the precedents that's already set for the area.
All right. So city planning, what do you think here?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have Adam Davenport here for this case as well. Mr. Davenport, were you commenting on this?
Yes, thanks, Maurice. So there's a number of fencing variances being requested right now, and I'm not sure if the applicant could go into specifics as to why those were highlighted and why those are needed. Also, I know that the parking is of concern, but normally, you know, we in planning, we definitely want to see parking usually in the rear. I do understand that this is a more unique case where this lot is very small. Previous owners to this house and many along this street, knowing it fairly well, do park in the street itself without off-street parking. I think that would be, you know, a fine alternative. I know the concern is usually around parking cars near windows of existing structures, and that's usually a Board of Building Standard question. And then, you know, usually we want to see in the rear, so that is hidden from the street. But again, I'm not sure if there were a number of fencing variances that I'm not sure the specifics of also.
Sure, Adam, I can jump into those. So there is old legislate, and I'm going to speak very generally because I don't know 100% of what it is, but there is old legislate that states that we couldn't have the certain type of fencing that we're requesting, but it's old law that doesn't represent current day. And that's the easiest way I can explain it. I'm not 100% sure how I can explain it any other way, but I have a vacant block next door. I have a dilapidated building at the rear, and I have a shared property line with the property next door. at just being that it's urban living and the homes are built very close. So there's no need for a fence down the sharing property line right now to the right of the property. If you're looking at it from Madison, there is a need to be able to, because this Cleveland Land Bank doesn't maintain their properties. There's significant growth, trash, and people have dumped items into that site. So what they're looking to do is be able to take the eyesore away from the vacant land, and then also the eyesore away from the property in the rear, and provide a security aspect for the home. And that's what we're trying to look for here. As far as people parking on the street, there is obviously this side of the street has hydrants. So this side, to be able to park on that is limited based away from what the hydrants are. There's also a concern for snow buildup. And then as the properties continue to be developed, we're looking at being able to provide off-street parking. There are 6 lots on this block that have the same parking as what I'm requesting. So there is a precedence already burnt in for being able to provide the parking. As far as the fencing, we're looking for privacy fences to be able to create a secure home for the lot. But
so you're looking at what, 8-foot board on board?
Yeah, it'd be it'd be board on board. Dog ear, and it's called out in the plans of what it is with the opaque percentage. 15 feet setback from Madison. If you zoom in on the left there, it drops down to 4 feet, and then it steps up to 6 feet at that 15-foot step back. And it would be then 6 feet all the way around to the rear of the property.
6 feet.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in, this is Liz Kukla.
Surely.
The issue is with the picket fence in the front part of the lot. It's where it runs parallel to the driveway or close to the driveway. It's not allowed to be higher than 2.5 feet, and it needs to be more than the 50% open that's provided. The code requires 75% open. So sections 3 and 4, I believe, are referencing. I'm sorry. It's actually just section 4 that's in reference to that picket fence in the front that runs parallel or near that driveway there. Just as a clarification, Mr. Davenport was looking for.
Thanks, Liz.
Yeah. I could tell you that this new virtual meeting idea, this is an example of where this doesn't help at all. Where you'd like to really be in the room and looking at the plans and having a better idea on the visuals. So anyway,
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to point out that this application was listed in at the end of February, and I've endured such hardship at the hands of the City of Cleveland for not being able to abide by the Ohio Governor's law changes for to implement this meeting under the coronavirus emergency order. So I'm looking for a ruling that we can work through today, and I can move forward and not continue to incur fees. I'm nearly done with the property, and I've endured hardship at the hands of the city. So I'd just like to be able to make that known. And then if there's any, the existing fence there right now is a wire mesh fence, and it already sits at 4 feet. I understand the opaque issue, and I'm open to having a more opaque fence at the front, but considering that it is vacant land next door, I don't really see what the issue is here, and why that if there's a precedence all the way down the street, that this motion cannot be granted.
what does my board think? Kelly?
Mr. Chair, yes. So, question to the appellant, actually. So, you would be open to making the fence more opaque, but you would prefer to keep it at 6 feet instead of making it 4. Is that correct?
Ma'am, on the front section, that 15-foot setback, if I can keep it at 4 feet, just to be able to keep the 4 feet as called out, would be my preference. I'm open to the opaqueness to that section, but from the setback there, which then shows an additional, I haven't got the plans in front of me, so I'm trying to look at this on the screen, 37 feet 4 inches. I'd like to keep that as a privacy fence, dog-eared tailed and 6 feet high. But I'm willing to work with the city on the 4-foot section if that's going to be a means to get this approved.
Okay.
I haven't got a good handle on this one at all. And the one thing that seems to be haunting me is that, you know, I know that these houses here, they're tight, and they probably weren't built when cars were a prevalent need. So we're trying to like shoehorn answers into this. And, you know, other people have come and asked us to shoehorn answers, and we basically have not done it. So, you know, we've done things like said you can park on the street, like Adam would say. So,
Madam,
you know,
Mr. Chairman, we have Alana Faith and Adam Davenport with their hands raised.
Well, Alana, what do you think?
I have a question to Adam about this. And Maurice, if we could back up to the view, the aerial view, please. Sure. Right. It appears that there's a hydrant on the tree lawn, which would be just adjacent to the curb cut for the driveway apron. My question is there a minimum distance the curb cut needs to be from that hydrant? And does that bring anything else into play in terms of changing our decisions here?
Where's Lou when you need him?
Right.
Mr. Davenport?
Yeah, exactly. Where is Lou when you need him? I think so. I don't know if that was not flagged to your question, Alana, because of the flag that you were not supposed to park in the front setback. So I don't even know if that question was addressed. I personally do not know that specific answer also. So yeah, that if this was approved, that would probably need to be evaluated by the fire department to make sure that some car is not turning into that fire hydrant and damaging it.
Different than how you doing?
I will say that also that the aerial view doesn't really show it, but just across the upper right-hand side of the aerial is the 61st Rapid Station. It's within a 3 or 4 minute walk of that station. So, I think personally to your question, Tim, of like approving these parking, setback issues, it's a very valid question. The adjacent lot is owned by the land bank. I mean, I would reckon in the next couple of years that a house will be built on that land. Right. CHN was looking at it. Across the street, you see in the aerial 3 vacant parcels that are independently owned and not owned by the Cleveland Land Bank. I know there has been a couple development proposals that the councilman knows about and the Detroit Shoreway Community Development Organization knows about also. I think, when we talk about site plans like this, we also have to think about future development in general, and that a house will be next door to that driveway, to that house, in the future, right? I think this is like a very tricky case, but yeah, I think the fire department probably need to look at that to make sure that it's not being obstructed, and it is within walking distance of one of the RTA transit stations as well.
And Adam, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Let me ask my second question, and then we can move forward. And to Adam also, on other projects in this area where we've had such densely spaced houses with very little land in between, rather than a solid concrete drive or parking pad, we have asked the appellant to use an alternative surface, something that would be more green, more drainage friendly. Is that a situation that we would want to ask in this situation?
Yeah, that's a good point, Alana, too. That we have, requested that in the past where these tight driveways and situations could be better used or doubled up as, maybe they're brick driveways or they're permeable surface driveways that can be also used as patios for the resident that's living there, because this house is being built on spec.
So to the appellant then, I have less of an issue with the 6-foot dog-eared fence in the back, but would you be willing to go to a decorative iron fence in the front at your 4-foot height that would lend greater opacity so it would not impede sight lines? And secondly, would you be willing to use a more porous, green-friendly material rather than your solid concrete pad for your drive and parking area?
Sure. I would love to answer that. And Adam, I just want to point out, I am in talks with the land bank about the land next door and developing that. So I think I'm probably going to be the one that's building a house on that. But that's that one. Ma'am, to your point, I'm open to a decorative steel fence for that 4-foot section. Although aesthetically, I don't really know how that's going to look to go from that to a wood fence, especially with, I'm obviously a for-profit entity as well. So I'm looking at this from a cost prohibitive basis and what I've had to do for this building to be able to get it to where it is today. As far as a more permeable driveway aspect, I've already put $130,000 into this project, into an area which again is, we're trying to build up what this area is. Anything other than concrete is very cost prohibitive for me. And again, I'm in this to make a profit, obviously, but I'm also part of this community, and I want to bring the standard of what we do in Ohio City up. So I'm open to a suggestion, but I would have to look at it from a cost aspect before I would be able to agree to anything.
Sounds to me like we have a lot of unanswered questions to be trying to make our final decision today. Seems like we at least are starting to understand what those questions are. And Adam, I think if I were to call for a postponement, would you work with the applicants on helping to steer this thing to a finish line in a couple of weeks?
I think, I don't know, to Alana's question and partially to yours, I think, the applicant definitely needs to call or talk to the fire department somehow to check what that measure is and make sure that we're approving something that they would want to see. I mean, I know there's a parking distance if you're on the street from a fire hydrant, but I'm not sure what the curb cut distance is overall. So I think the applicant needs to talk to the fire department on that. For the fencing itself, I mean, I'm happy to work with any applicant overall and stuff like that. But some of these are more official rules than not, is what I'm trying to say.
We used to have a sample, kind of an iron type fence that wasn't decorative, but it was kind of classy, simple design. You know what I'm talking about? It's right there in planning. Planning department had it.
I'm not exactly sure. No.
It's like tubular steel.
It's extruded aluminum typically.
This was a little heavier gauge.
Oh, like a powder coat?
Right, like a powder coated extruded aluminum that simulates the old vintage specific to this area. It would look like a wrought iron fence. Powder coated in aluminum.
It really doesn't look like a wrought iron fence. So it's industrial feel to it.
Right.
Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, to be able to get around this issue, can I just remove the 4-foot section and not install it? And then I'm happy to just leave the 6-foot setback from the 15 feet point and be able to just go ahead with the 6-foot fence.
Suppose you could, yeah.
It's going to get around the issue and I can get an approval. I want to get this thing on the market. And as I said, guys, I've been waiting since March for this. We're now nearly in July. It's cost me a lot of money to just have this sitting here. I can't market this property without fixing the yard. So I'm really pushing and hoping that we can get a determination today. I understand if you would like to place a condition on there that I need to get a letter from the fire marshal or one of the fire inspectors. I'm happy to do that, but I'm looking to see if we can get a motion approved today on the driveway and the fence.
Board, do I hear a motion?
I cannot make a motion on it today.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Adam Davenport before we make the motion. Adam, I don't remember if you weighed in on where the parking is exactly as far as city planning is concerned.
Yes, normally, to your point, Kelly, we want to see the parking in the rear half of the lot. So that would be pushing the driveway further into the rear of the lot. But I think the Board of Building Standard question of parking near the window of a structure would still arise. So I don't think it would completely eliminate the problem that we have that's been raised from the building department. So if I'm interpreting the rule correctly, you know, in planning, we would also want to see parking in the rear to begin with, but I understand that that's not going to eliminate the problem. But if this were being reviewed in the housing design committee that we staff, that would be a stipulation of the site plan review overall for sure.
And Adam, I'm okay to be able to push the parking all the way to the back of the lot. So that driveway can be extended and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Which would then alleviate the distance issue from an open window, because the car would be, if it was to be parked on there, would be all the way into the rear, which would alleviate.
Oh, are you not reinstalling that window that's shown in the photo?
I'm sorry, you broke then.
Are you not reinstalling any of those windows that are shown in the photo by the back deck area?
In the photos here, they're all the new windows.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, we'd be happy. I think from a planning standpoint, that's preferred as parking in the rear half of the lot. You know, back to kind of Alana's point of paving more, you know, impermeable surface. I don't think that's ideal, but I think parking in the rear half of the lot is the planning general preference. I don't know. I won't speak to, you know, the rule of parking near a window not being taken into account. I guess I'm not sure the distance in theory that we're talking about anymore. So
sure.
Okay, Mr. Chair, this is Kelly. I think the applicant has worked with us to come up with a different plan here. So I think we can move with a motion unless someone else has anything to say.
It does seem like there'll be a new plan submitted, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could whoever, just Mr. Chairman, what did you say then? My headphones cut out.
No, as the board, we're asking if anyone else has anything else to say before I move with the motion.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So that's a no. Okay, Mr. Chair, given the testimony, and I think from where we started to where we ended is something different. So I move that we approve the variances as requested for column number 20-044, noting that the appellant has agreed to change the fencing in the front, the 4-foot fencing, to be more open, as well as moving the parking on the site to the rear of the site, as well as he has to check with fire about where the curb cut and the hydrant is, as well as parking by a window or whatever the concerns from planning came that will come up in a different review situation.
Ms. Britt, I think Mr. Murphy said that he was going to just remove the request for the.
Hold on.
Oh,
hold on. You can't interrupt the motion like that. You know, we got to have some order here. So, Kelly, were you done making your motion?
I was, yes.
Let us see if we have a second on the motion before we talk or open it up for any questions.
Merlin, Ms. Barnes seconded.
All right. Okay, now, any questions?
I was just pointing out that I believe the applicant had stated that he was removing his request for the 4-foot fence in the front.
You got it.
Correct. So we will amend that so that that will be on the record as part of the motion.
Okay, Liz, could you call the roll?
Ms. Faith?
No.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
And Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
So this is granted, calendar number 20-44, pending the revised drawings showing that the parking will be in the rear half of the lot and the picket fence will be removed. And also pending a letter from fire that the location of the curb cut is all right regarding the hydrant. Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
Correct.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fired once we get all this stuff in.
Liz, would you, or is there someone that would provide me with the contact for which fire marshal or fire inspector I would have to talk with? Or is that just something I need to just go and talk to a local fire department or fire?
Does Mr. Davenport have that information? Is that something that happens in design review?
I don't have that specific contact. I'm not sure if that's a building department question also. I mean, I can fish around with it and send it over to Jake if I find it, but I'm not sure if somebody on the call from the building department may have that also.
I would hope.
I'll look for an email from you, Adam, and if not, I'll go and the fire chiefs and.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll send something along.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right,
So
last case.
Just as a note, this won't be ratified until we have those. And if you can get them to us before next Monday, we'll ratify it on Monday.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you so much.
Last case. Alana?
I need it on the screen.
I'm looking at it.
It is on the screen.
Not on mine.
Calendar number 20-035 at 3660 Bosworth Road. Alvar Perez. Okay, take it away.
I have it. I have it.
Go for it.
Hello?
Okay. Calendar number 20-035 at 3660 Bosworth Road. Alvar Perez, owner, and Jeffrey Mart, tenant, proposed to establish a recovery housing for 5 residents in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
All right. Everyone for this case, please prepare yourself. Marlene will swear you in, and your response is, I do, with your name.
Do we have the applicant here?
Yeah, Jeffrey Marte, I do.
Okay, you're on the phone. Very good.
You can't say I do yet. Go ahead, Marlene.
Excuse me?
We're waiting for our...
I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your name?
Jeffrey Marte, I'm sorry.
All right.
We also have the councilman on the call.
Okay, Brian Mooney, and I do.
Okay.
And Adam Davenport, I do.
Okay. Got everybody? Liz, how about some history here?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This case was postponed from March 9th at the request of the board to allow time for the appellant to speak with the city planner and the development corporation and the councilman. I believe that you also requested that a public meeting be held. I'd like to also note that for the record, we don't have anything in the file from Perez, Albert Perez, the owner of the property. The appellant stated that he has power of attorney. We don't have a copy of that, but of course that's something we could get later. And we did have testimony on this, but I'll read it again. Originally, it was zoned multifamily in 1929. In 1993, it was changed to two-family. In the records room, I found only that in 1934, a permit was issued to erect a one-story garage. 1966, a permit was issued to enclose the porch of a single-family home. In the records room in the more recent history, I found that a certificate of disclosure was issued in 2005, stating that the authorized use of the property is single-family. In 2016, there were 2 violation notices issued to the property regarding condemnation. In 2018, there was a permit applied for to demolish the 2-story property structure on the property. And then 2018, in May of 2018, there were interior, exterior alterations to rehab the property to correct condemnation issues. Later, there were electrical, HVAC, and plumbing permits that were issued on the property as well in 2018. And that's all that I have, Mr. Chairman. Back to you.
All right, we'll go to the law department for the legal standard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the distance requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
All right. Tell us what you'd like to do, sir.
Well, basically, like I explained to the board last time I came in, what we're trying to do is that, for men that are coming after rehab, that don't have nowhere to go, you know, preparing them for a sober life, and also helping them to get education, find jobs. I mean, reconnect with their families. You know, because a lot of these guys come out, okay, you go to a residential program, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, that's the first step of getting their life on track. But after that, they're lost. You know what I'm saying? You leave there after a certain time, your insurance is up, or, you know, your payment's up and you got to go. And a lot of guys don't got nowhere to go. And if they do got somewhere to go, they still need direction. They still need guidance. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're trying to offer at the facility. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to make Ben into better men as an aspect, as in, you know, guiding them how to be independent. You know what I'm saying? How to be able to depend on themselves. How can their family depend on them? You know, so, and for them to feel comfortable with themselves and direct them as in all directions. Like, as we want to do like family days. We want to do also educational classes. We're also gonna have AA/NA meetings at substance abuse disorder assessments. We also want to do disorder treatment plans for them. I mean, also, you know, provide resources for mental health. Like also for family days, movie days.
All right.
Hello?
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I mean, basically, you know, we're trying to just make better men. We're just trying to make better men and be independent men. That's basically what we're trying to offer. And a lot of guys, once they leave from rehab, they're lost. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, they did the first step. So what's the second step? You know, and that's how a lot of relapse occurs. So that's how a lot of individuals, just as men, women also, they relapse because they come back to reality and they're lost with no guidance. A lot of people, they need assistance. They need a helping hand. They need someone to sponsor them every day. You know what I'm saying? So they feel they're mentally ready. You know, they can be physically ready, but mentally they be lost sometimes. You know, they're not used to doing things on their own. or doing things on a sober mind. And that's what we're trying to offer there.
All right.
And, okay.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes,
Have you been involved with this work prior?
Yeah, I've been involved. I was an addict myself in the past, sir. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I'm not talking from personal experience. Like I said before in the board meeting, I don't know if you was there. You know, I was part of the issue. I said I want to be part of the. I want to help. I was part of destroying the community. Today I want to be able to help the community, and I've been doing it for at least 2 years now. And like I said, I myself was an addict, and that's how I ended up finding this is what I want to do. What I want to do in my life. You know, this is what I want to do as a career. I went and got my CDCA license. I got my high school diploma, first of all. I first went to a program, did a program. I went and got my high school diploma after high school one, and got my CDCA license. And then I went and started helping out in a program myself. And then I decided I bought this property. Me and my mom bought this property. And I felt like I said, I found this is what I want to do in my life. You know, and I felt that we can help more to the community. I could give more to the community, and we can use this house instead of just renting it out. I could rent it out and be over with it. But I was like, we could use a nice location, nice community, and nice space. And I felt that we can help. You know, we can use this property to help the community.
Right.
Plus, one more thing before I want to explain this. One thing too that we want to do there also is like that community itself, Bosworth area. It's a middle class area, but you know, it's an area that needs caring and TLC. And I feel that my guys, what I want to do with them is part of their agreement and their contract to stay there, to reside there, is to help back the community. So, you know, by cleaning, picking up trash, stuff like that.
All right. Board, any questions from my fellow board members? How would this work? Would you be living on site? How many people are on site?
Yeah, we're gonna have. That's another thing, because a lot of people work. That's a lot of issues with other sober house living. Not only I didn't just jump into it to start educating myself. I went and spoke to other sober house living owners. I've educated myself. Like I said, I worked in one, and then a lot of people are scared of is who's going to be watching them. Somebody don't watch them. It's just surveillance, but we're going to nip that in the butt. We're not playing with these guys. We're going to have, like I said, we're going to have 24-hour surveillance on the premises, and also somebody with a 24-hour. At the beginning, I will be the one residing there, and so, you know, if we're towards closing, then I can hire somebody, but I will be there. Somebody will be resting there 24 hours.
Mr. Chairman, we do have the councilman with his hand raised. He'd like to make a comment.
Absolutely.
I'm here. You know, this is really my first one. I have a series of questions for the applicant. Is that permissible?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sure, Mr. Marte, how are you doing?
Good. How you doing, Mr. Mooney?
Okay. There's a number of questions I want to ask you. None of this is personal, but I want to see. Okay, first off, I talked to my Community Development Corporation. According to them, you've never contacted them. Have you ever contacted Westtown?
Contacted who?
My Community Development Corporation. You were told.
No, because I didn't.
Hold on, let me finish. You were told at the last hearing to contact them and Adam Davenport. Did you contact Westtown?
I didn't contact them. What happened was at the board meeting. I'm not sure of the fella's name. When they explained to them, they was going back and forth. I was a little lost, and at the end, they was like, "Listen, we're gonna walk to the Adam Davenport's office, and he will take care of everything from there." And I walked there with one of the board members, physically to Adam Davenport's office. They gave me his card, left a message, and from there, all I knew was to communicate with Adam Davenport, and I'm communicating with him numerous times. He's been excellent with me. He's always answered me, and I thought that's what I had to do was speak to him. That's all and everything else I've done according like I was told. Like I said in the meeting, I don't know if I misunderstood or what, but at the end of the meeting, it was like, okay, because I explained to them that people go back and listen to the meeting. I was a little confused, and they was like, you know what? One of the board members said, listen, I'm going to walk you to Adam Davenport, and he'll take care of that. and that was it. And I've been communicating with Mr. Davenport since.
Okay, sir. Now, okay, so you never contacted Westtown. Now, the next question is, well, you already answered that. Mr. Donovan suggested at the last meeting that you should contact Adam Davenport and Westtown to have a community meeting. There has been no such meeting. Why didn't you push forward for a community meeting?
Excuse me?
You were supposed to contact Westtown and Adam Davenport to have a neighborhood meeting. My question is, why didn't you pursue that?
Okay, and this, like I just said, when at that meeting, I don't know if I heard they said about a meeting, but they said CPC or to Davenport. I thought that Mr. Davenport was who I had to speak to about the community. If I knew that I had to contact someone else and they would have gave me that information, I would have contacted them, which that's not what happened. Now, like I explained to you, I was explaining to you, at the meeting, they was talking about meeting, they was talking about about a couple of things, and I was confused. And I explained to them that I was confused, and they was like, listen, this is what we're going to do. And one of the board members was like, listen, I see you're confused. I would take you to the office, to the person you need to speak to that would tell you what to do. And that's who I thought was Adam Davenport. And that's who I've been speaking to. So if I knew that I had a community meeting or anything, I would have, any information more they would have gave me, I would have followed through. I have no problems following through or following orders at all.
All right,
Like
I have a lot more questions.
So
I have a lot more questions. So the next question is, because I called and emailed you, and I know you came to my office prior to me being councilman. It was Councilman Brady, and I heard that.
Yes,
but
yes.
let me just ask my question, sir. So,
yes, sir.
You didn't get back to me till Friday night after business hours where you responded. I emailed you a question. The first question you didn't respond to me till 10:30 p.m. last night, and then I immediately asked you a question where you didn't respond till today in the middle of the meeting. So I can accept that. So here are my questions. This is a single family home of 1,400 square feet. And you told me that you want to put 10 men in what is listed as a 3-bedroom house. So how do you propose to put 10 men in a 3-bedroom house?
No, okay, let me explain that. Okay, well, the original thing was we was going to put 5 people. Now, the reason I told the extra 5 was because I was in my construction guy was like, listen, the basement is so big that we can add in 2 rooms, and that's why I said that. But originally, what I found for the permit was just for 5 people, which was 2 guys in each bed, 2 guys in each room.
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly. This meeting is sort of out of order. They're supposed to be directing questions through you to the other person, and we're kind of having a side meeting here. So
I'm sorry.
I don't know how to.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And the reason, and Mr. Mooney, I'm sorry, man, I'll cut you off. And the reason that you're asking me why you emailed me and you didn't answer an answer at a quicker moment. Now my email, I gotta check my email. I don't get a notification on my email. So I have my kid I take care of. I got a construction business I carry. So I don't check my email every hour. You know what I'm saying? So that's the issue too. I have kids. And I also have a construction business. I'm not just sitting around, and I don't get notifications to my cell phone. So that's the issue, to answer your question.
Mr. Chair, this is Lori Wagner. Could I make a comment?
Go right ahead, Lori.
This was advertised for 5 people. If the appellant's plans have changed to have 10 people, it's going to have to be re-advertised. You can't just, that would be a significant change that the neighbors would be entitled to notification.
Yeah, that's what. When he asked me the question, I said that. He asked me, how many people would you like to put in there? And I would say just because of what my guy had told me, we could do this in the future. I said I would like to put 10. But what I filed for was actual 5 people only. That's what I filed for.
Okay, so we're not asking for 10. We're asking
No,
for
we're not
5.
asking for that. No, we're not, Mr. Mooney. What I was saying is, I think we missed the worded. I missed the worded my answer incorrectly, or I read your question incorrectly. But what I was saying is, yes, I would like to put that. That was my future plan. Like my goal is to grow. You know what I'm saying? And that was what I was saying. If I answer your question correct, I apologize. But I mean, it's just coming to. I filed for 5 people. You know, and the paperwork shows actually what I filed.
Councilman, do you have any last questions?
Oh, I have lots of questions, and I know he gives lengthy answers. But so, are the 5 people? Is that 5 people in addition to yourself or whoever the monitor is going to be?
Well, yes, because you know the room we would like to put actually what we would like to put is actually a front in the front, which would be with the main entrance, just like a desk area. So what I would do is I'm not sleep. I'll do 12 hours and say something. The next guy will come and do a 12-hour shift. So there's no need I don't need a room. I don't need a bedroom. I don't need a bed. You know what I'm saying? I got an office. If you come look at the location of the facility and you see how it was built, you know, I got a big entrance when I come in, which I'm gonna turn into an office, which I have cameras and all that. You know, I have a comfortable that I'm able to surveillance and, you know, perform anything I need to do from there.
So again, there's going to be a 6.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry. There are going to be 6 people staying there. Is that what you're saying, including the monitor?
No. I'm saying 5 people, right? Now I'm saying myself in general, and whoever's helping me out. So I have it's not going to be a bedroom. It's not that front entrance is like it's going to be an office, desk, chairs, camera, flat screens with some surveillance, file cabinet, stuff like that. Now, be comfortable enough that I'm able to do my duty as whatever hours I'm there, and then the next shift person comes and fills out and says, just, you know, nobody's doing that person that 6th person like a manager, supervisor. There's no, it's like a
5 residents, 5 residents, 1 institutional manager. Next question.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, sir. Now, Mr. Marte, because I know you told me you mentioned this. How long have you been sober?
2 years, I told you. I think we just
3 years?
to that. 2 years, yes, sir.
Okay.
2 years.
You mentioned that you were destructive to the community. When did you stop being destructive to the community?
15, 20 years ago, sir.
15 to 20 years ago. Nothing since then.
Let's say 13 years ago, and I mean destructive as, and when I say destructive as if, I'm not saying robbing and stealing and breaking in people's house. That was not what I'm saying is that I was using drugs. I was an addict.
Okay, well, sir, I want to ask you some questions now based upon that.
Yes, sir. Answer anything you want.
Okay, sir, let me talk. Now, I'm looking here, and what I see is, it's interesting. You mentioned that this house is in your parents' name, right?
Yes, sir.
His mother's
but you stated today that you bought this property. So are you this is your property that you're hiding in your parents' name?
No, I'm not hiding in my parents' name. I own other properties also. What happened was it was a partnership. That's all it was. There was nothing hiding under nobody's name.
Well, what I ask is because I do see that in 2018 that you owned a home where you live now, 4212 Denison.
Yes, sir.
And you transferred that from your name to your parents' name several weeks before the county proceeded for foreclosure actions on properties of yours. Is that right?
Okay.
Is that correct? Because I see it too. They then filed a Board of Revision tax case, a foreclosure on you, sir, for a property that you owned on West 32nd Street that they foreclosed on is now a land bank property. And at that time, you transferred your assets in your parents' name.
Okay, now what happened was the 42nd or 40, you talking about the one on Denison. What happened was I was in a financial bind and they bought me out. So that's what happened with that property. That wasn't nothing that I mean, I don't see what they're my parents. They helped me out instead of me selling it to someone else, and I sold it in my family. That's what that was about.
Okay, sir. Now, here, based upon that, I see that the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office has been trying to serve you for a child support order out of Miami, Florida, and case DR 09-324-842 for a child support order. Of course, they couldn't because as of in that case, in December 10th of 2018, the county prosecutors gave up and tried to enforce the Florida child support order, sir, because they couldn't serve you. Are you aware of that?
Never, sir. Mr. Mooney, you ain't correct with that. First of all, my case been closed years ago. There's no Florida couldn't find me. You could find me. You just said you found all my information. You know everything about me. Why am I hiding for? I don't know. I don't understand where you're coming from, and I don't know why you.
Okay.
No,
I do see.
No, I never. My case been closed. I had a case in Cleveland, Ohio. First of all, I never resided in Miami. I got kids that live in Miami, but I live in Ohio. So they know. I go to court. When I went to child support court, sir, I went in Ohio court. I got all my documentation. So whoever you might misinformed you. Now, my case been closed for over 6-7 years, sir. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Mr. Chair, we are way beyond zoning at this point. This meeting is not about zoning, and I move that we, pause this discussion.
Yeah, if you have any questions that are pertaining to the project at hand, Councilman,
okay,
we'll allow you to do those, but at this point, I think you want to be wrapping up.
Well, okay, so I'm not allowed to ask about his criminal record in the past few years.
No, it's
all right, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't know. I thought that was irrelevant. Because as far as questions, then let's see.
What we really want to know here, Councilman, when it comes all down to it, where do you stand on the project? Are you for it or against it?
Well, I'd like to let Adam Davenport and everybody speak, and then I'll like to give the last.
Okay, then Adam, step up to the plate. Yep, fine. Adam?
Thanks, Tim. For zoning related matters, to get back to what the essence of this request is about, Bosworth is a pretty mixed street. There's a lot going on. This is not zoned for this use, but I will state, for the record, that Bosworth is a mix of zoning, and there's a lot of mixed buildings on it. So I'm kind of unaware of what the first section that's being called out on the letter of nonconformance is exactly stating. The second pertains to use. So that should be definitely evaluated. And I think, these typically are evaluated by in multiple ways, including a community meeting, which I do not personally organize. That's the CDC's job. But, I guess I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Does this request have to be filtered through a screen that shows how many other such facilities are located nearby, because we don't want to over saturate areas?
For these recovery houses specifically, or for facilities in general, like what's being stated in the letter on the screen or something like that?
Either or and both.
Oh, okay. Well, definitely for what the letter is pertaining to with other facilities nearby, that's, I think that's done when the write-up is done. But for a saturation of, or level of, amount of other recovery houses in an area, I don't think that is looked at, to my knowledge. It could, yeah, I don't.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to call your attention to the letter on the screen. Normally,
I was going to read that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Before we get to the councilman, let me read. We did have one letter come in. I'll read it to you. Dear board members, in regards to this calendar item for rezoning, I would like to express to you that this request is a bad idea. Bosworth Road has 3 schools located on it. It has a couple of churches located on it as well. Most notably, considered the intended use of the rezoning request, there is also a bar, the Bosworth Tavern, located right across the street. So this is written by June Scanlon, and she ends it by saying, as a neighbor resident for 56 years, I believe granting the variance will be a serious mistake for my community. And with that being said, Councilman, if we could ask you to weigh in on your support or.
Sure. First of all, this is my first BOZA hearing, and it was good to see. I apologize for my questioning. My background is as a prosecutor and assistant attorney general, so now I'll know for the future not to delve into that area. My concern is this. Mr. Marte's done an excellent job of work on this house. I'm very aware of this house. I've been inside this house when we were trying to get it condemned. And it looks beautiful. And in fact, it's dug up around the house. I think he's doing waterproofing right now on the house because I drove by yesterday and he is.
Yes.
My concern is this. My concern is directly across the street from this is a bar. So this picture from the taking of the vantage point would be from the front porch of the bar. So you can see it there, and there's a front porch, and that's open. So this sober house would be directly across the street from an open bar. There is no registry. I do have quite a few of these halfway sober houses in my ward. Now, since they're not licensed or regulated by anyone, it's hard to know exactly how many exist because some, like Mr. Marte, come for the zoning, others just open.
Just open it, yeah.
But but the real issue I have here is this. The issue, if he's limiting it to 5, it's less of a concern than 10. 10 made me really concerned. The other concern is if he's going to be placing it in the basement, it's more of a building question of whether people can be in the basement or if it's been modified so it's habitable. But I'm concerned that he did not have a community meeting. He did not, and he's correct, my CDC would have organized that and invited Matt or worked with or not Matt, Adam. But he just didn't do that. So in the absence of community involvement and other concerns, I would oppose this.
All right. Okay, let me just note this following though. I mean, because this is something we've all had to live under. This is the first meeting we as a board have had since March 17th. Why? Because we were prohibited to have community meetings, basically. We're a community meeting. So, I mean, to hold that against someone is unfair, I think.
Thank you.
I don't think that there's necessarily enough goodwill in this community to make this a success. I think you do need to have that community meeting sometime. And obviously, it's just not the right time to have it. This guy sounds like he's done a lot of good things. Sounds like he's put in the past some very, troubling past. He admits it. And, guys like this, in the end, I think you want them to succeed. You want them to be helpful. He's obviously a hard-working guy. No matter what happens here, I hope that Councilman, you and the Development Corporation can help and make sure that this guy's investment on a property on Bosworth is a smart one and he gets something in return for what he's done. To the appellant, we will take a vote, yes or no here. I will tell you that one of the things you have as a right is that if you want to withdraw your request, we will not decide on it. Why would you want to do that? Well, if we make a decision on your case that's negative, you will not be able to come back to us at a later time and ask for the same thing. So
excuse me,
we're going to put this. Let me just finish, and then I'm going to give it to you. But at this point, I think you got to ask yourself the question: might this be a good time to withdraw and take a break, and let's let the world try to figure out when we can have public meetings again? And meanwhile, maybe your building across the street gets used as something else. But I will ask my board for a motion, but to the appellant, would you like to say anything?
I mean, I just want you guys to understand that I understand where Mr. Mooney came from about me not going to the community meeting. But like I said, I mean, whoever's on this line now was there that day, and I was confused. And if there's nothing that I would not comply, there's nothing I wouldn't have done to comply with whatever I was asked for. And if I did make a mistake right there, it's because I thought by speaking out them for was the city planning, and that's all what I was understood. You know, if that was my ignorance, I apologize, but I wasn't intentionally. I'm not trying to shortcut nothing. I worked super, super, super hard on that property. I complied. I've changed my ways. I've worked on myself. I've helped others, and I feel that. Okay, we say about and I want to say that I went to the community and I spoke to the church, the Spanish church people. I spoke to the neighbors next door. I spoke to the building owners. I spoke to the bar owners. Like, so it's not that I did my footwork. I'm not just, I didn't have no issues with nobody. Everybody agreed. Everybody was cool with it. And I feel that, I mean, this could be a real big help to the community. That's all I can say. I mean, it'd be a disappointment if you guys don't give that to the community.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just real quick, I mean, would it be possible to maybe, listen, I understand what you're saying about the community meeting, you know, that maybe it wasn't possible and it shouldn't be held against them. However, it shouldn't be held against the community that this type of facility is going up with no notification or input. Maybe it would be proper to continue this again to allow for a community meeting.
Mr. Chairman, this is Lori Wagner. Can I speak? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Yeah, go ahead.
2 points here, and the one is, well, this was written up because the Building and Housing Department determined that there were other facilities like this within the specific distance. So as the councilman said, there really wasn't a way to know, but there is a way to know, and there are facilities within the distance. That's the whole reason that they are here today.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Liz Kukla. That is incorrect. That was not one of the sections cited, at least not in what's written on our agenda. It's just that this use is not permitted in the 1 or 2 family district. And Mr. Riccardi is here as well, if he wanted to chime in if I have it wrong, but it's my understanding that it's just the use that's not permitted in the single family, 2 family. It was not written up for being too close to other uses.
That is true, because this is not a residential facility per 325.71. There's no license from the state. It's just the use as described, and it is not permitted in the 2 family district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Lori Wagner, I apologize. I read this wrong. We didn't have the benefit of a staff meeting to discuss, so apparently what I said was incorrect. So what you're really asking for here is a use variance. But the second point I want to make is that the neighbors did get notice of this application.
Yep.
And they did not.
Okay, if the neighbors got notification, then I guess one resident sent in a letter.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly. I have a question. Is the appellant open to having more time to address this, or if he wants a decision today? I don't know if he really understood what you meant by withdrawing right now and trying to go back to the drawing board. So I will pose that question to him.
Before we get there, the councilman has basically put on the table an idea of continuing the case without making a decision today to allow for that public meeting to still happen.
It's just a suggestion. I don't, you know, it's not a motion or anything. I'm not saying I couldn't do that.
Hello?
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm giving up on this idea. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that we allow for continuances and we honor those requests by council, the administration, and usually the local development corporation. So we give a total usually of three opportunities when they can request a continuance. So to the councilman, I want you to know that you seem to be snuggling up to maybe, shall we say, a request for a continuance. If you wanted one, you'd get it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's this. I mean, I guess if some of the neighbors are notified by letter, that's one thing. If it would make any difference, then maybe it would be a good idea. But if you don't think that the result of that meeting would change anything anyway, then maybe it's pointless.
I never make decisions on
Madam,
conclusions.
Mr. Chairman, could I please chime in on this?
Absolutely.
I would like to say, instead of we judging his past, maybe we can look to his future. Young man, maybe you take a day or two to think about it and come back in a different way. It may be better outcome for you.
Well, I mean, if we want to do that, there's two ways that gets done. One is you ask for a continuance, or two, you withdraw the case, and then that gives you even more time to think about it. This is to you, appellant.
Oh, I mean, I mean, how much more time do I need to think? I would love to. I would like to, if by talking to the community, I mean, another bit to the community meeting. I would love to. I mean, I feel that if I could get a chance to address the community, I mean, they would be on board. I mean, but for me to withdraw and start all over, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, or a lot of months, over 6 months, 7 months when we're at this. I mean, I feel like I just want to move forward. I mean, I got confidence in what I'm doing. I know I'm not doing nothing wrong. I'm not hiding nothing. I feel that if I'm able to talk to the community as a whole, I believe I can. They will feel comfortable with what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm bringing something positive to the community. I'm not bringing nothing, and I don't want people to be scared that your next door neighbor, it could be an addict. You don't know. I mean, the beautiful thing is you know where they're at. When you don't know where they're at, it might be a problem. But we know where they're at. You know what I mean? Like.
All right. This has gone long enough. Councilman, I'm going to come back to you. I mean, you seem to be sympathetic toward the idea of helping with a community meeting. Again, there's no promises here, by the way. The community could hate this idea, but at least you get your chance to pitch to the community. All right, Councilman, would you help him and make sure that Metro would also help?
I absolutely would have.
Okay, then guess what?
West out and have a community meeting,
right.
And maybe then that would be fair to the neighbors and everything else.
Okay, and here's what I'm going to do. The other thing is, if the board gets we have the ability to postpone it. So I'm going to use the card for the board and say that we're going to postpone the case. Give us a date. What do you think? 3 weeks out, Councilman?
Oh, I need a month because I'm
a month out.
Give notice, have a meeting.
Yep. Okay. Give us a month.
It's 4th of July.
That's true. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, that date would be July 27th.
Sounds good.
That's the last Monday in July.
You got it.
Okay. So do you want to attend that, Adam, or do you just want to be aware of it?
Yeah, I can attend and I can answer any zoning related questions at that. Thank you.
I'll coordinate with you so you're aware of that. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thank you. Let's go to old business.
Sorry to keep us so long. Thank you.
It's not your fault.
Partly.
Old business. I can't read what. No ratifications today. Beautiful.
That's correct.
A request for affirmation. Home to Avenue. So please read these and then we'll vote on them. Take a couple minutes. Read what do you got here? Six different items here.
Mr. Marte is still on the call. Your case has been postponed to July 27th. I hope that Mr. Davenport and the councilman will reach out to you to let you know that date of the public meeting.
Okay, thank you so much, man. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Sixth affirmation.
Yeah, the others seem to be straightforward. There is one that there's a third affirmation requested on Lorraine Avenue.
Right.
I was just about to ask, the Knez one is always popping up. I mean, I'm fine with the rest. Do you know what's going on with that one, Liz?
Which one?
Which one?
The Knez one on Lorraine.
They got one on Bridge too. That one went to common
Yeah,
place.
they are, is this the one that they had issues with the?
It says something about financing issues.
Yeah, I think they're ready to apply to for the permit now. So they're very close. They had issues with the financing. So now they are ready. I believe they're ready to go forward. They just have to submit their permits and they're not going to get the permits. I'm sorry, the permit application. They won't have their permits in time before the expiration date. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
I didn't get a lot of detail from Knez on that. Just you know, the standard stock letter. If you want, I can reach out to them for more information. If you want to hold it to the next one. Okay.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's only the third one. I mean, we've had people with way more than that. I just wanted to know if you knew the background on it. Okay.
Right.
Without objection?
Without objection from Kelly.
So these are all
without objection, all
Without
of them?
objection, Ms. Barnes.
You guys want to just do all of them without objection?
Without objection, Ms. Barnes.
Without objection, Tim Donovan for all of them.
Okay, would you like me to call the roll?
Sure.
Ms. Faith? We cannot hear you. I can see your mouth moving.
Unmute here. Without objection.
Ms. Britt?
Without objection.
Ms. Barnes?
Without objection.
And Mr. Donovan?
Without objection.
Mr.
Wow.
Donovan, do you think that we should send them on that West 17th Street this is your last affirmation note on that letter?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll add that language into the letter, letting them know that this will be their last one.
All right.
And that they'll have to reply after this one.
Boy, I'll tell you what, looking at next week's agenda and given the way this thing went today, wow. We're going to be here forever.
I think we had a lot of technical difficulties with the animal hospital, so that drew it out a little bit. And then you let the councilman go way too long and personal.
That's true.
Yeah, way too. That other one.
Okay.
That was getting really out of hand, and I was very uncomfortable. So.
Yeah, no,